The good news is I wrote another book. The bad news is I wrote another book. Every time I tell myself I'm going to commit to writing one work in progress per quarter of the year, it never works. Like, my brain ends up hyperfixating on something and I can't let it go until a novel comes out of it, but we'll get to that later. As you can see from the title, I was just in New York, my favorite city ever, and I thought it'd be fun to show the trip and film a nice little vlog. But since this channel is all about writing and my journey of becoming an author, I wanted to also share the secret, well, not so secret, passion project I've been working on in December, which I promise to spill all about later. We'll sit down and chat about the project itself, why I wrote it, but first, let's start in New York. Wells lay on his back, hands folded neatly over his chest, as though he were practicing for stillness rather than sleep. The room retained a faint after-image of the cinema, the ghost of flickering light behind his eyelids, the residue of a story that had been intense enough to feel borrowed but not intimate enough to wound. The film had been about an artist. They always were. He could still see certain images with discerning clarity. The deliberate way the camera lingered on a hand mid-gesture, the intimacy of concentration, that quiet inward ferocity artists seemed to possess, as though creation were not a choice but a pressure, something that would split them open if left unintended. Wells had admired it. He always did. Admiration, it came easily to him, but what didn't was recognition. He tried with careful honesty to locate that same compulsion within himself, the hunger, the urgency, that sense of necessity everyone spoke of in reverent tones. He loved art deeply. He understood it. He could analyze structure, trace influence, name intention. He knew the lineage of movements, the conversations across centuries. And when he danced, there was pleasure, precision, a quiet satisfaction in the discipline of the body obeying thought. But it did not feel inevitable. If he were forced to stop tomorrow, the loss would be painful, yes, but survivable. And that, he suspected, was the disqualifying detail. Great artists in the film had looked as though they were fleeing something or being pursued by it. Creation had not appeared optional, it had appeared like oxygen. Wells wondered, not for the first time, if this was the difference, that some people were born with an internal darkness that demanded articulation, while others merely visited it. Perhaps this was his failing. Harvey reached out and brushed his thumb against Wells's cheek, gathering the tear as though it were incidental. His gaze dropped briefly to Wells's mouth, curious, evaluative. Harvey's attention, when it arrived, felt nothing like affection. It was heavier than that, more deliberate, like being measured against an internal standard Wells could not see and had never been told he was meant to meet. He noticed it first in the pauses. Harvey listened the way surgeons did, with the stillness that made Wells suddenly conscious of every unnecessary word. There was the gaze, too, which never skimmed or softened but lingered as though Wells were not a person so much as a question imperfectly phrased. It made him adjust himself in small, unconscious ways, straighten his shoulders, moderate his breath. Being watched like this stripped something away. Wells felt his movements sharpen beneath the pressure of Harvey's focus, his thoughts arranging themselves into clearer lines. He wanted, inexplicably, to deserve it, to earn that attention by becoming someone more precise, more exact, someone whose existence justified scrutiny. He told himself it wasn't longing, it wasn't desire, it was recognition, perhaps, aesthetic sympathy. But the explanation ran thin, even to his own ears, collapsing the moment he examined it too closely. There was something unsettling about the way Harvey looked at people, not as companions, not even as rivals, but as material. And still, when Harvey's gaze found him again, Wells did not look away. Wells had taken into walking the perimeter of the estate in the late afternoon, when the light softened enough to make the place feel briefly benevolent. The house, for all its grandeur, seemed less watchful then, its windows dulled, its shadows loosened their grip. He walked slowly, hands folded behind his back, letting his thoughts arrange themselves in careful, bloodless rows. Above him, the sky settled into that particular blue that suggested intention, not beauty exactly, order. He studied it in the way one studies a painting one does not yet understand. Certainly, there was something being asked of him. He might have walked the entire loop without looking down again if movement had not caught the edge of his vision. One of the upper balconies, several stories above, held a figure leaning too far forward to be accidental. Harvey. He stood with his forearms resting against the stone railing, weight pitched casually into open air, a cigarette burned between his fingers, the ash grown long and unbothered, as though gravity were a suggestion rather than a rule. From where Wells stood, it was impossible not to calculate the distance, the drop, the inevitability. Wells stopped. There was no immediate panic. What he felt first was a strange analytical stillness, the mind's reflective attempt to inventory risk before allowing fear its proper place. Harvey did not appear distressed. He was not teetering. He was simply there, suspended. Okay, let's dive into the book. For the entirety of December, I have been more or less obsessed with the idea of tortured artists. Did artists like Van Gogh create great art because they suffered or in spite of that mental struggle? Why has modern culture romanticized pain as a genius on its own rather than a single lens for producing creatively? Why is it that in the art world, the line between intensity and suffering is so thin? What does it even truly mean to be in pain? I don't have an answer for any of these questions, but it did inspire me to write a book, which you heard pieces of today. Project Ribcage is essentially a Saltburn x The Picture of Dorian Gray literary novella that depicts the psychological collapse of a young man who is trying to become worthy of a genius who has convinced himself that pain is the only doorway to meaning. The project is very Lana Del Rey coded, so haunting but in an intimate way. I sprinkled in some old money aesthetics, allusions to Greek myths. I love Greek mythology. I also played around with a little bit of an unreliable narrator similar to The Secret History. Plot-wise, it follows two main leads, Wells Huxley and Harvey Lyman. Wells, the narrator, finds beauty in distance. So in paintings, in books, in film, he draws inspiration from the lives of people who are braver with their talent than he allows himself to be with his own artistry in ballet. So as someone who has gone through life as more of an observer and a thinker, he ends up concluding that his lack of experience has led to a lack of despair that animates the artist that he admires most. And so his character journey starts with him wanting transformation, wanting to achieve a certain level of seriousness about his talent. He's soft, to be frank, but softness is the easiest material to shape, which is something his college roommate Harvey Lyman does quite easily in the novella. When the two of them decide to spend their winter break together at the Lyman's estate, Wells is more or less of a distraction to Harvey. He's someone harmless enough to not demand attention, but like self-contained enough to not impede upon Harvey's goal of creating his magnum opus during their time away from school. Harvey is a painter, by the way. But as the novel unfolds and the two of them spend more and more time together, Wells's admiration of Harvey turns into obsession, and he begins to idolize Harvey's eccentric and rather intense way of creating art as something to strive for, which causes him to lose himself in the process. So we have a nice little negative character arc in the book. This is where I think the tortured artist trope does the most damage, because it convinces people that in order to be meaningful, you have to be broken open in some way, and that creative aspiration without self-destruction is not enough to be legitimate in the field, which further positions pain as a gateway to success and encourages creatives, especially young ones who are just starting out, that struggling with mental health is something to keep with them in their art journey rather than seeking the help they need. So I wrote this book to show the beauty, but the ultimate horror of the idea of tortured artists and the danger of romanticizing something so damaging to the mind. I think the relationship between pain and art in today's society is very interesting, and I had to write a book. Which brings me to my announcement. If you would like to read Project Ribcage and help me come up with a title, which I desperately need, the link to sign up for beta reading will be dropping soon on my Instagram page, which you should definitely follow for more consistent content. I swear a goal for 2026 is being more consistent on YouTube. You guys will see me, I think. Just for reference, I am probably going to keep the form open until February 1st, and I'm looking for a group of around 5 to 10 people. So definitely sign up if you're interested and this premise is intriguing to you. I would love to get some eyes on the story, and it's closing February 1st because that's when I hope to start drafting my main project for 2026. We all know and love The Distance Between Skin. But again, the beta reading form will be dropping soon, so if you decide to sign up for it, thank you so much. Sending love. I'm so excited to put together a team. But that concludes today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to leave a comment down below telling me about your writing projects. What do you think of Project Ribcage? Does it sound like something you would read? What is your take on the tortured artist trope? Do you agree that romanticizing pain is damaging to artists, or do you see it as an outlet for people to create their most meaningful piece of work? I will see you soon for episode 3 of the Brainstorm book series, which is all about creating characters. That is a highly requested video, so I will be posting that soon. I pinky promise. And thank you for all the love on that series, by the way. I did not expect it to be doing as well as it's doing, and it's making me so happy seeing everybody tell me about their writing projects and how it's going for them and things they want to see from me. So love you for that. But yeah, if you're writing today, I'm wishing you endless love, luck, and creativity. I will see you in the next one. Bye.